All right. Good morning, everybody. I apologize for us being squished to the corner, but as we start off the new year, we're starting off with new technology challenges. We think that the software got updated, and we're having trouble connecting remotely to the two TVs, and so we're going to squish over here to the corner, and everything will be unfortunately just on this one monitor. But the good note is we're live on Zoom with everybody, so that seems to be working this morning. So what I would ask is that anybody coming up to the front, please come that way. We've got the cord and don't want to cause anybody to have a tripping hazard there. So good morning. Welcome to the January 2023 meeting of the El Dorado County Fire Safe Council. What I'd like to do is have asked everybody to stand, face the flag in the back, and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It looks like we've got quite the full house, which is great. Folks can just grab more seats back there as as folks come in. Please make sure that you sign in if you haven't already, and connect up with Carrie. We want to make sure we track all the board members today and ensure that we have a quorum. So we will work on that. Our first order of business, item 4, is approval of today's agenda for today's meeting. You've all had a chance to get that in the board packet that went out several days ago. Any comments, questions from the board relative to the agenda? Hearing and seeing none, either online or in the room. All board members in favor of approving the agenda signify by saying aye. Any opposition? Okay, the agenda for today's meeting is approved. Item 5, minutes from the November 16th board meeting. Again, that went out in the packet to the board members. Any comments, questions, corrections, additions, or deletions to the draft minutes that were presented? Okay, seeing none in the room, seeing none online. All those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, the minutes from the November 14th meeting are approved. We have no new business on the agenda today, but before we get into the informational items, just sort of setting some framework. We've been a while since we've had an opportunity to get some of our stakeholder presentations. So we really want to spend some time listening to our partners' reports today. And although we didn't put them as specific individual presentations, we've got several that includes we've added Maya Davis as our fire safe coordinator as a standing partners report to the meeting. And so we're going to spend some extra time when we get to Maya's report today, so she can catch us all up on what she's been doing in the programs. We really haven't had a chance to spend that time with her. So we'll just be spending a little more time where we can throughout the partners reports to kind of kick off the new year. I think I'm going to defer chairman's report and communication and defer at this point to Hugh for vice chair report.
Thank you, Ken. I don't have a lot to report. Every thing is gone consistent. And just as of the last meeting, still going to meetings, still participating in the other county meetings and so forth. Still working with the state fire marshal's office, looking forward to trying to get an answer back on our defensible space training assessor course that we'll have. I know Ron Phillips is working with one of the chiefs. There's only 2 apparently in the state that's approved to give that the current course, and he's agreed to do that for us, do a trainer. So that'll be coming up down the road. And we'll be talking to you more about that. Other folks have already started. It doesn't affect all of you, but it does CAL FIRE and it does the county, the FPOs, the fair booths. I know the FPOs have got their booth for this year. We have paid for our booth. I don't know, CAL FIRE probably has done that. And the county will do theirs, and then we got Forest Service and RCD will be left. So that's moving forward. We're moving forward with all of that, and we look forward to that. And that's all I have for now.
Bernie.
Sorry, a quick thing here. I noticed that when you gave the presentation concerning the defensible space training assessor, last month or whenever. And one of them was supposed to be a field tour of looking at the principal space and hardening. Is it possible to use two different elevations? In other words, a mixed conifer elevation and a oak woodland, because they're significantly different, I think, in the principal space. Well, I know there's distances and things like that, but I can see a significant difference between those two major communities.
Yeah, sure. I don't see any reason why we could not do that. The good thing about the State Fire Marshal's Defensible Space Training course, if you read all the stuff that goes in, it gives the instructor a lot of latitude on how they want to do that. So yeah, I think that's a good suggestion, and we'll certainly do that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ernie. Your comments, great. So I am looking, and I didn't do my due diligence just prior to the meeting, but I don't see Karen, our secretary, in the room or online, and I just want to make sure I'm not missing Karen anywhere. I know that she's been traveling out of state over the holidays, so is she? Okay. Yeah, that's what I expect. So we will defer the secretary report and then move on to item 70, treasurer's report. Janet. I will.
Sorry about that. To share is that our accountant is working calendar year 22 taxes, so I have sent all checking accounts under our employer ID an email requesting information about any purchases, single purchases, or services that you have done under your checking account that exceeds $600. And the reason for that is our accountant is required to file notice with the IRS on those items. So if you have not responded to me, most people have jumped right on it and got back to me, so thank you very much. If you have not, please do so soon. I need to get that to her at the end of this week. Our audit status, we are still working with our auditor. I'm going to meet with her next week on next steps. She has gotten all of our contracts and has been going through them and asking a variety of questions about our meeting minutes and such. So I'm hoping to start getting sample audit sample requests next week. Some of that may require some assistance from the associate counsels, and if it does, I will let you know about that. And the third item, we talked at our board meeting about, I have several inquiries from associate counsels about whether they could get the little credit card squares and accept credit cards through their bank account. I have talked to the bank. It is possible to do that. We as a council don't have concern. We are not opposed to that. The only thing I need to confirm with UMPA before we say, go forward to set that up is that the charges would be assessed to the associate counsel, to the parent council account. The charges are $10 a month plus 2% of deposits. So it may not be something that every council can do, but for those who are interested, it is a possibility. That's the end of my report.
Did you want to comment on the Title III, what we're reviewing, dealing with Title III projects?
Ken asked about the Title III projects, the $5,000 allocations to each associate council. When we sent that reconciliation out to you, I think it was in November, I did get some comments back that that we needed to reconcile some numbers, and so I'm working on that now and hope to have that by next meeting, and I will be reaching out to everybody to make sure that what I have matches what you have.
Thank you. So with that, the treasurer's report was emailed out as part of the board packet. So with that, number one, any questions for Janet relative to the general treasurer report and background information that she provided?
Yes, files from Greenstone.
Microphone. Perfect.
Denise Stiles from Greenstone. And setting up, we're a newbie in this thing, so we went to Umpqua, set up for $500. You didn't correspond with Jim from. Is there a place, because I looked on the website that shows how all of this works, because we were kind of surprised by some of this stuff. Like us having to put in $25 in the getting the thing into the Mountain Democrat about our account. Is there something on the El Dorado County Fire Safety Council website that actually explains all of that stuff and what Title III will approve and what it won't approve?
So that's something that when you have your meetings with Karen, the secretary, about becoming an associate counsel, she usually hands out information about that. I don't know that there's anything specific on our website, but I know that when we work together to set up the account, I usually provide an email that says, here's what you need to do.
Okay. Oh, we didn't do that, so that's our error. So we didn't meet with Karen about new settings, you know, just.
Oh, okay, but normally that's in her, how to be a new associate counsel.
Okay. Okay, great, thank you.
If there's anything else, that we need to do, make sure you're set up.
I will, and I'll send you an email later. The $5,000 that you talk about, this allocation. Can I just have a little explanation about what that's about?
You want to?
So the El Dorado County has been very generous in coordinating Title III funds. They're federal funds that come to all of the counties. In particular, El Dorado County gets a piece of that funding each year, and typically that's been something that's gone to it's very specific in the authorizing language as to what it can be spent on, and typically goes to the sheriff's department for search and rescue and other community operations there. And then historically, because of work that the county and Steve Willis and Pat Dwyer and others have done, there's been a portion of that coming to the Fire Safe Council to work on community wildfire protection planning, firewise activities, education. And so for a number of years, we've received a portion of that funding, and we have that. We took an opportunity this last year to for the 2021 allocation. We wanted to get that out in the form of these sort of mini allocations to each of the interested associate fire safe councils at the time. And I don't believe Greenstone had come on board yet. So I believe we had about 14 associate councils that were interested and are utilizing the $5,000 each to do various projects, green waste days, educational materials, and some others, very specific projects. So we've been having some further discussions with El Dorado County, and I think going forward, it's hopeful that we'll be able to have future allocations of Title III funding to utilize for a variety of programs. So right now we're using a portion of that funding for the Defensible Space assistance program to seniors, veterans, and low income. So it's just, again, it's a pot of money that's been made available, and we're trying to get it out there and on the ground and used by the councils as well as the program.
So each year, in addition, there is $200 available for reimbursement to associate councils for education and outreach and list of things along those lines. And so that is available through reimbursement. So the council would go ahead and make the expenditure and then ask for reimbursement.
That goes to you.
The request for reimbursement comes to. And then new councils, of course, will cover the cost of getting their its name, statement, and all of it, and their setup documents. So that's their initial setup. So from here on out, you would only be eligible for $200 a year for whatever ongoing flyers and things things you would purchase, you could request reimbursement through that.
This may sound like a dumb question, but does it reimburse for like waters and refreshments at a meeting? If we're having.
Yes.
Yes.
It does.
It's very specific that you can use it for that. I think we have a question from Chris Payne.
Yes, since we're dwelling here, on this subject, I thought I would tie it back into our report. If we note miscellaneous grants, the title 3. There's 1, 2,
Yeah.
3 line items. If you could kind of explain those 3, why very little expenditure. It seems, well, actually, Cass expended 45,000 on the first line item, but then nothing on the other ones. Yet their balances seem to be significant. So can you tie that together, please?
Absolutely. And Sue Henneke from El Dorado County is in the room, and we've been working very closely with Sue in her office on the discussions over Title III. And we, in our efforts to continue to try to provide pull out every piece of financial information that we have and share it with everybody, how we're displaying grants, in particular Title III, was important to us. And we're very comfortable in talking about, we've had some Title III funding for a number of years. One of our allocations goes back as far as 2016. And we've been using those funds periodically to help support the efforts we've talked about. But as you can see, we're getting more and more support. The challenge we have is there wasn't necessarily a calendar date or an expiration date on the original allocation, but there have been on subsequent allocations. And so we're trying to spend those down and get, and the idea is we don't want to hold all this money just sitting in the bank. We want to get it out to all of you or on other projects.
Then the grant end date, if you go down, it's blank. There is no grant end date,
Right.
which makes it, to me, that's a good thing.
Right.
Because there's no expiration. And then it does, we have the associate council grants and annual funds, which I think you're speaking about in
Correct.
this conversation. You're talking about the $5,000, you're talking about money that is potentially out there. You had some takers, 14 or whatever.
Right.
But then D-space allocation, and then 24 or 2014, 2016. How do those play out, Ken?
So the 2014, 2016 is that original allocation, or or at least the last holdout of funds that we're still carrying. And yes, just because it says there's no end date, we're interested in getting this money out. We're in discussions with El Dorado County to get more.
Yeah.
And so we don't want to be holding money when we're asking for more. And I think it's just been, as we're identifying opportunities to get the funding out, the defensible space program is the key. We've got a line item of $75,000 sitting there out of the current allocation because we want to really jumpstart the program. And we're also looking at the checks in the mail. Sue tells us that we've got a new allocation coming that's not showing here yet, but that will be for 2022 funding. And so we're trying to get this all out in one place so we can all see it, and then start making some decisions about how best to spend it. But our intent is to really start spending this down on our key programs, defensible space, maybe some more opportunities to do green waste days or get some of the mini grants, if you will, out to all of you. That's what's important to us. But we needed to get it on the map so you all see it and we can talk about it.
The board allocated that $75,000 as we were running out of the other grant opportunities for the D space. So if you look towards the bottom, the foundation, we're into one of the $5,000 grants from the foundation. We've run through the SMUD grant, we've gotten through the other PG grant that's down there. And so which those two, since they're zero, will be dropping off. So don't be surprised by that next one. So we, as a board, allocated that $75,000 to set aside. So when those grants have expired, we still have funds available to continue our research.
I would only add to the people who are new, this is very complex. And it has to be audited. Because as you see, there's so many categories here, and our executive board is responsible in our behalf to make sure that we're doing this legitimately and that we're gonna be auditable in the end. So that's why your question was, it's a broader question, and I just wanted to touch on that. Thank you.
But I've got a question also.
Yeah.
Just. Okay,
You're good.
thank you. So in our fire state council meeting, a question came up from one of our ambassadors. We have 6 areas and each one is represented by an ambassador in that area. And we've also been promoting and collaborating with the CSD to create, to help them with meeting their goals and objectives to implement Firewise communities throughout the greater Cameron Park area. A question came up relative to grants and funding. One of the entities that we sponsored and helped become an NFPA Firewise community has part of their plan to create defensible space, perform chipping activities and so forth. And there's about 80 something homes in that area. And the question came that they're having a difficulty in trying to utilize the website to schedule time for that many people. And then they said, well, can we use the 501c3 status of the county because they want to go after some grants? And I said, well, wait a minute, let me bring it to the council and get their thoughts on it. And I thought a good approach might be if they create a batch or a list of Microsoft Excel of all the people that want chipping and then select a day that they do it and then submit that list to the county. And then they could coordinate to have everyone come to that way. Then we don't get into the 501c status, giving out the tax ID number associated with it. And I'm not sure if this is the right topic, but since we were placed to talk about it, but since we're talking about grants and those things, I felt compelled to ask.
No, and I got your voicemail, Paul, and thank you. I didn't get a chance to follow up. I'm gonna turn it over to Pat. We push the button, we'll be red and then fire away.
I figured you were busy.
Yeah, no, but I was looking for your email, but we're good.
I note that we have item 8A, grants and funding, Pat Dwyer. That is later. I thought we were on the treasurer's report. And you're looking for a motion to approve the treasurer's report, aren't you?
Well, yeah, there were just a couple of things that seem interrelated that I thought we could just, if we're here, we'll just answer it very quickly. Bottom line is because the 501c3 is related to the treasury report, we're not going to give that out, obviously, to other folks. There is a process on chipping that which we can talk about, that Pat can share about how we can batch those and do that. We've done that in the past. And when I think maybe, Pat, when we get to the chipping program, we want to talk about everything that we're doing and have Jessica's online. There's a lot going on there. So
Okay.
we'll definitely talk about it there.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, I see no other questions or other hands up. So again, folks have had a chance to see the treasury report that are part of the board of directors. Any comments, additional questions, concerns relative to the treasurer's report? Hearing and seeing none, requesting a motion to approve, or all those in favor of approving the treasury report as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition to the treasurer's report? Okay, treasurer's report is approved as presented. So I see Karen is here. Thank you. We weren't sure if you were stuck in a snowdrift, but
Yeah.
we're
You know, 3 days ago, I was at the beach in Florida. Today I was shoveling snow.
yeah. It's quite the contrast. So then let's circle back if you don't mind, and we'll do the secretary's report.
I don't think I really have anything to add today. Do I?
Well, I think there may be some offline things that folks are
Oh,
looking for, but I think we can probably address a lot of that offline unless there's something for the good of the order.
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. All right. All right, with that, let's move into 7E, our partners reports. And again, I didn't do a super good job of perusing the audience prior to getting here, but I wanted to confirm, do we have Jason Schrader from BLM or any rep from BLM with us today? Let's see, and I'm looking online. Okay, I don't see that. Jason? Okay, well, this next one, I'm literally going to just turn this over to Megan at CAL FIRE because there is a half a hand crew worth of CAL FIRE staff here today. And so I will let her talk about the exciting things going on in her program.
And both of these will be looking a lot with project planning and fire prevention, and it's done that part of our town meetings and working with our stakeholders. So, we're very excited. For. And then the only other thing I have today is, I know everyone is applying for grants and thinking about projects they can be doing in the future, who they can apply for, and if you have questions about application or sort of activities or things we can apply for a grant to our wildfire prevention grant, please reach out to Daniel or Nancy for others here. And if you don't have a contact, great.
Thank you, Megan. And again, obviously, if you have very specific grant questions, as she indicated, Patrick and the team are there to hit them up later. But any other questions, comments for CAL FIRE? Okay, well, absolutely welcome to the new group there, and we really appreciate the engagement and look forward to working with you all. All right, next up is the Office of Wildfire Preparedness and Resilience, and it has my name next to it, but I'm gonna put this one upstairs to Sue Henneke, the Deputy CAO, and Clarissa, so I can talk about some of the things going on. Sue.
Working on our school-based ordinance that we have in the county and reevaluate workers and generating those funds. We're pretty excited about our GIS data hub. We're working on that with our coaching surveyor who is an amazing job of supporting us on that. And so it's getting moving on that. We have a staff group assigned to that as well as the technical space ordinance. The other work leader that we have is our communications and outreach group. And they got their work from them and coaching providers agreeing to do that group. And so there's and somebody mentioned the fair coming up, so we'll be part of that. This on those other sheets really well mastered. One big group of fire folks there with the RCB and that we're also working on a large grant that we're waiting to hear any day on. The grant that will allow us to do the physical space and hardening. In the area south and south of the platform, another big drainage. Started as a housing mitigation grant application. Then OES actually approached us to join in their program and become one of the pilot communities. But this is we've kind of working in parallel tracks, so we're working on a similar program to the physical space from farmers. They had selected some communities to do that work. They saw what we were doing and they actually offered. So that went from about $13 million project now to a $24 million project we'll be working on. And I understand, it's one section of the county, there's a great need everywhere. And I just want to assure that we hope and this will just be the beginning. And we chose that area very strategically in a lot of ways. And we did look at risk throughout the county. We had a group of 10 and fire prevention officers and other fire folks, RCD, and came up with a set of risk factors and sort of some criteria. We started with 7 areas. They went out and toured them, looked at critical infrastructure. They did a deep dive as you could, and then we had to 5 minutes. And so, as I said, any one of those areas we could have fixed that was great need and was within a lot of that we could do. In part, we landed on this because there are a lot of opportunities. It includes part of the city of Placerville. It's near Highway 50, so when you want to show off, you want to get folks back on that. So again, strategically hoping that it's just the beginning. We kind of work through this process, we get really good at it, and then maybe there will be other opportunities in the future where we can expand these something for families at their areas. So that's a lot of work that we have coming our way for right now, where there's an office of 4 people, but 3 musicians, basically, just getting down there to have the level.
That's one way to say.
Cool.
We will be looking at hiring folks with the background. So we're in the office. It's fine. Ken and Janet, we're starting to maybe we're kind of keep up with all those often have my contact. Like. Some of our communications and outreach, share out some more full and then all the meetings are our advisory communities. Really this office is not the deal. And what really is driving all this effort is our advisory. And all of those agencies that are there, of course, there's child welfare, RCB, our shop. Well, everything's there for a lot of money. The volunteers. And I'm really impressed. This committee's gone on about a year and a half now, and everybody's still there, and it's coming to the table and actually. So, that's really good to do, impact community place, and then all the R's that we have in that community that could offer all the stakeholders. This office is all. Being there at the center, that coordinating that, keeping everybody talking to each other, and helping us tell the story of all of the that you all. Sure. We're looking forward to not doing this year and then
Great, thank you, Sue. Of course, she gets the question, right? So we'll start with Angel. There.
Choose the test.
Chris.
Just wanted to, I was gonna say the same thing for those of you that want a lot of good information. Go to the county website in the calendar and then pull up on Legistar the 10th. You'll note that's a regular Board of Supervisors meeting. And the item was item number 26 at 9:30 time specific. So just go down the agenda till you see the times. It'll be 9:30, and then click on the Legistar number. In this case, it's 23-0078. It's a number off to the left, and then that'll bring up the body of the item, and all the attachments will be listed across there. There are attachments you might want to look at, including the presentation, which was Legistar. So I just wanted to give people a better chance, again, of understanding that there is a lot of things that are going on right now. I'm trying to keep up, as you discussed at that, Sue, at that meeting. You took the lead on it, Sue. It was actually wonderful to hear all of the things, including the bump up in the money for the Weber. That was tremendous to be able to pull that off. So we ought to be all very excited, as I am.
We are, Chris. Thank you.
Just what was the
24 points.
okay? Thank you.
Okay, double checking. I'm not missing anybody online in the room, but great. But as Chris said, this is very evolving very quickly. Sue just provided just a huge download of the pieces of this. And we're going to continue, and I'm already processing. We'll talk about website maybe a little bit later, but the challenge has been trying to get our website upgraded. I want to be able to share and make links to these kinds of things. We want to be able to do a better job as the council of pointing in these directions. And we're a little bit technologically challenged with our current website, but yes, I do appreciate, Chris, you help reminding us where we can go get that for now. So thank you, Sue and Clarissa, for being here. Okay, next up, I have Tim Cordera online representing the El Dorado County Fire Chiefs Association. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning. Can you hear me all right?
We got you.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Yes, good morning. On behalf of the Fire Chief Association, we did not meet in December, so we are meeting again, actually next week, to start off the new year. Crews have been, pretty busy, as you can imagine, with the storms, over the last few weeks. A lot of, calls for service, a lot of, issues going on. We were able to partner with, Cal OES and do some pre-positioning of, quite a few additional resources within the county during the flooding that we experienced, the first part of the year, and it's still kind of ongoing. Moving forward, we've got a couple of things that we're helping out with our local fire safe councils. And the Placerville Fire Safe Council has their event in March, and we look forward to partnering with them and our other allied agencies to support that. And then with our prevention folks that are involved with the Defensible Space Committee, supporting them and the endeavors that are taking place. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions and to report.
Thank you, Tim. I'm looking in the room, making sure you make any questions, and looks like we don't have any right now in here or online. Again, thank you, Tim, for the report and being here today. Next up is the Fire Prevention Officers Association, and just confirming that that is you this morning, Ron Phillips. There you are. Good morning.
Good morning to everyone. The fire prevention officers did not meet in December and are also not meeting this month. Our next scheduled meeting is in February. A few updates for the group. The state of California adopted the latest version of the California Building Standards Codes. Those are regulations that apply to generally new structures and additions to existing structures. It's the California Building Code and the California Fire Code are both located. Those recent regulatory changes were implemented beginning January 1st. I haven't looked at the changes in depth, but I do note that there are some some new regulations pertaining to wildland urban interface construction standards, specifically related to vents and some of the outside portions of the structure. So we'll have to take a look at those and get back to you as far as the impact locally. In addition, the local fire districts are in the process of adopting their own current fire district codes and ordinances. That process has been completed within 5 of the districts, and then the remaining 7 fire districts are currently working on finalizing their regulations. Not a lot of changes related to wildland urban interface or criteria than what was already previously there. Things like water tank standards and the like really haven't changed much at all. The state has not taken action yet on any proposed regulatory changes associated with Title 14, the fire safe regulations. I just checked the board agenda for the Board of Forestry. They are not scheduled to discuss it again this month. So as of right now, the Title 14 regulations that were enacted in 2021 are the current law of the land. And there's really no legislative update. I expect we'll see a host of proposed bills coming in here soon. But they've not yet submitted those for review. And with that, end of report.
Thank you, Ron. Any questions for Ron and the Fire Prevention Officers Association? Okay, well, I can definitely speak from what I've seen and know there's a lot going on in the world of the fire prevention officers, and Ron and that whole team has been doing just an amazing amount of work trying to keep not only us as our constituents, but just the entire county engaged in just a whole variety of different processes that are going on. So Ron, definitely appreciate all that. Next up, looks like we have Jacoby Watts from the El Dorado National Forest. Jacoby, the floor is yours.
As you already know, Forest Service, we have a lot of holes to fill, so we're working on trying to fill some of our holes that we got. And so with that, like I said, please, what's working is our new field battalion in the Castroville district. So if anybody in that area, for somebody to talk to, you have Forest Service land up to your land, I'm leaving the person over there. Then they can build around this home. We're really trying to move back into the eliminated communities and start trying to eliminate natural field between new lands. So you'll see us more coming this year and upcoming years. The contractors are trying to eliminate those fields. We are right now working on building our program of work, and that's kind of building onto what I'm saying, and working on trying to start illuminating, working more. So then it feels around with Anthony's community, so if you have stuff that's really bugging you outside the window for a service project that you've been waiting for us to do, please can talk to myself or Mark, and then, we'll try to put that on our table. We already have thousands of acres that we have been, kind of overwhelmed trying to do, so I'm trying to tie in with the council and see about kind of upping our basic skill, seeing what we can do about bringing in close to and then also we can staff the year round for any kind of community needs going around, just FYI for you, typically we let folks off, but we would keep the folks on, just in case, needs come around where, we need to be around, our partners that are already doing that, so. And then that's what, any questions? How about the new supervisor? I always talk about the new board supervisor, I don't know very much about him, yesterday I think his first day, but you probably know more about him than I do. Yeah, Joe Style, fairly young guy, figure his body trying to make some trends here, introduce himself. So we're going to find some council, so we're going to give him a little bit of time to kind of get his feet wet on what we got going on. It's coming from DLM over to the board service, so hopefully you're going to good change. So I'll be around afterward, the folks need to talk to you offline.
What part of California is it from? You know?
We'll make it cool.
You know, right now. Around here now. Okay, from the past area.
So we'll make sure once he gets his feet on the ground, have an opportunity to invite him to come and so we can all meet him.
Once I get information about him, I'll make sure.
Looking online, no, actually, Jacoby, I can't get past your offer of what's bugging you when you look out the window at the Forest Service. So we're just gonna hold you to that. No, we really appreciate you being here and that partnership. So thanks, and for letting us poke at you a little bit. Okay, next up, Mark with the El Dorado and Georgetown Resource Conservation Districts.
Good morning. Happy New Year. Where those being done, because we're going to find out whether we're if it's overlapping with anything else anybody else is doing. If that can be something that we can see in advance, so we can prepare the communities to let them know that we could be put that great. So yes, we have, and so we have a Facebook. Okay, we have a Facebook account, so we're gonna start trying to upload our information. We'll be doing fuels reduction projects on the Facebook account, and you can go in there and actually see what we're doing. And we're trying to make sure that we're updating the maps according to what we're doing. I have names of stuff that kind of coincide with what other folks are working on, the projects that other folks are having, and they kind of like link into those. So yeah, we will actually make it so it's so Forest Service Facebook account. Or Twitter or whatever else. I don't do that, so. That's what it is. I guess the message on my report is that the coordination of activities is something that we're trying to take into account as we put together our work plans and coordinate our actions across the landscape, coordinating BLM. Obviously, every fire state council, Forest Service, EID, SMUD, EID, all those, so we can be efficient. So that really helps out a lot. Again, my name is Mark Abraham, I'm the district manager with the El Dorado and Georgetown Resource Conservation Districts. And I just want to say, we are busy with the Caldor Resource Recovery team working with primarily Grizzly Flats. We've put about almost $8 million out there so far, and it's just barely touching the surface. We have probably 10 times more landowners than we have asking for help than we have actually allocated funds to help them. So it's an ongoing effort, and we know that we're committed to that, and that is a priority for us to make sure that we bring as many resources into earnings territory there to help them out as much as possible. We also have done a lot of work at the Sierra Tahoe. We pretty much got the mountain open this last year. but there's still a lot of work to do. We only got about 50% of the trees removed from the mountain, but at least we were able to open the run. So full mountain access is our goal for this upcoming year. Operations along the Fire Adaptive 50 project along Cable, Forbay, Sierra Springs, Gold Ridge, Slide Park along Norman River Trail is underway. Obviously, winter operations have kind of slowed us down, but it's a little break. It's okay. But those contractors will want to get back to work right away. Making progress in Georgetown. Thanks, Tamara, for all your support out there. Working on BLM lands, some of the BLM grants, and also working with a lot of private landowners. So the Fire Safety Council is absolutely key in helping the RCP partner and implement the projects by communicating and coordinating with landowners to try to get right of entry agreements, communications, building awareness, building advocacy for these programs. So that's been, in my mind, a really successful example of that. And then also working on Paloma Lotus and the South Canyon projects, and we're initiating our field reconnaissance, trying to collect data to make sure we can put together a really good project description for the fire safety councils and determine where the allocation of funds are going to go. So we've been doing this because our RCB has built additional staffing positions. We've got a new project manager, Steve Graydon. So you may know him from the last CWPP. Working with Barry Kallenberger. We've got our fire safety coordinator, it's partnership with the county and the fire safety council. We've got a GIS specialist working on helping the county with the GIS platform. And our own project databases, we've got a communication specialist, so we'll be tying in and hopefully cross-sharing social media postings and other things like that to get as much information out to communities as possible. And we have our field tech to make sure all of our field operations are in hand and information is getting to between our contractors and our project management staff, and then an accountant who's helping manage our account and making sure that my time is a little bit more freed up. So with that, I do want to just close in and say that at the last grants committee, I heard that there is a need for fire safety councils to get some assistance on planning and preparing projects for future funding cycles. I think that's a really important endeavor. We're already working with a lot of fire safety councils here to try to take their CWPP or the primary objectives and get them into a little bit more of a formal project description and plan, so that we can maybe move those projects down the road, so that when funding opportunities come available, that we're coordinating those efforts and we get the best projects on the plate as possible. So with that, good work.
Thank you, Mark. And I know this is always dangerous, opening up the questions to Mark, because there are always, but so I guess what I have to, if you've got any questions for Mark for the greater good, absolutely. But there's also anything we want to, that may be individual, we can, maybe take that offline.
Just
So
a quick one on the
go ahead, Paul. Would you like a microphone?
yes, that's good.
All
Online. Yeah, Mark, thank you for the comprehensive report. That was great. I was scribbling fast, and the amount of grant to address the Caldor fire and how much has been spent.
So Caldor, the Government Forest Management Task Force, the private landowner working group, has been influential in allocating funding, as well as state and private forestry office out of the Glendale Forest Service, and not to mention the El Dorado National Forest leadership here. To date, there has been about $19 million this year alone, and so we spent we spent just between July and November about $14 million of on the ground work just associated with Caldor recovery.
14 million July to 1.
From July to November.
Thank you.
Okay. Janet, could you grab the here. All right, thank you for that, Mark. I'm seeing no other questions or comments. Moving on. So I know Eric Brown's been working really hard again at SMUD to try to balance his schedule. We talked a little bit towards the end of the year. He was hoping to be here. I'm looking, I don't see Eric, and his schedule has just been, all of his meetings continue to line up with ours, but he continues to reiterate with me SMUD's commitment And I can tell you, there is a lot going on with SMUD, behind the scenes. They're working a lot with the county's efforts on, and Greg Stanton on biomass, potential biomass, site locations and some other projects. So they're definitely engaged, but Eric just hasn't been able to line up his schedule. So we'll continue to stay connected with Eric and hope that, we've got an opportunity to have him here in the future. Yes, Chris.
I've seen with the flooding and the outages that have occurred because of the storms that we've been having. He's a full.
Yeah, I'm sure that just, and that really goes for Mike Webb, number 9. They're both very tied up, I think, with obviously the emergency response and support component of their infrastructure. So yeah, we hope to have both of them back with us here as we get later into the winter and spring. Okay, so I'm looking, this probably the same here too, Sergeant Bear from the Sheriff's Office of Emergency Services. He's definitely been engaging with folks. I know some of the councils have been talking to him offline with questions, but I think with the EOC operational and things in response to the county's support of the floods and wind damage, I think he's committed to that too. So we'll just keep them on our radar, and I hope we will look for getting them back in a few months. So next up, this is where I want to take an opportunity to, and everyone have to bear with my technical challenges of putting things together on PowerPoint, but we've asked Maya Davis to provide, yeah, I got you up next, sorry. Really just give us an overview. Again, she'll be a standing partners report going forward, but there's some catch up to do with who she is and where she's been in the project. So I think I can show it if I can make it happen here.
We'll show it. I don't need to sit down.
Yeah, you tell me what works, and what I have to make sure I do is make it available for everybody online.
So I put together a little presentation for you. I'm gonna try to get through it quickly because I understood this to be a presentation, but it's really just a report today.
Yeah.
My name is Maya. I was born and raised in Georgetown, and I had another life, and then I returned to Georgetown where I live and grow wine grapes with my parents. And I'm really happy to be here today with all of you. I've had the good fortune to work with a lot of you individually already, but for the sake of formalcy, my name is Maya. I'm the El Dorado County Fire Safety Coordinator. And you can advance the slide, please, Ken. We can skip that.
Okay.
I am a professional geologist. I was educated in public institutions in California, and I'm also a certified winemaker. So I really enjoy the foothills on many levels. It's my home and it's also my playground. I explore with my dog Merle, and I'm a licensed professional geologist in California and Utah. The County Coordinator Program is a statewide program that is available through the California Fire Safe Council, and it's funded from CAL FIRE. Thank you, folks. There are a number of participating counties already in the state, and then they have opened, I think, their last grant opportunities for the remaining counties in the state to be a part of this program. The purpose of this program is to develop regional capacity, encourage collaboration, and support information flow from local to state and vice versa. I just want to say there has already been an immense amount of collaboration going on in this county. So it's hard for me to identify what exactly I'm doing, but if I'm able to support, then I feel successful.
I'm gonna make a quick fix here. PowerPoint, if you don't get it set up prior to sharing, it doesn't advance on so I'm hoping if you can just give me a second to.
And if the internet's slow, the internet will be showing you slide 1 and she's talking about slide 6.
Couple minutes. So in El Dorado County, this program is supported by 3 entities. The Fire Safe Council identified this opportunity. The county applied for the program, and the RCD staffs the program. So I made this little logo that is on my business cards to represent that partnership. It's also in my email signature. This is just what it means. This shows the partnership of these three groups. And I think hopefully captures the spirit of the goal moving forward for fire resiliency in the county. There are specific.
Excuse me, to your logo.
Yes.
As I said at the Board of Supervisors, I thought it was tremendous. And I thought that you did a great job in reflecting the coordination through that triad. Can you tell me a little, just a sec, on how that came about? I mean, it was very well done.
Well, I wanted to have some business cards to give out and. It didn't feel right to just have an RCD logo on it because this position truly is supported by all of these groups. And so I just threw them all in there.
Very well, I should be giving you more emphasis than I am, because I feel really strong that you did, you reflected what you do. Essentially, you know, one of the questions was, what do you do? And you're trying to explain that in your presentation.
Yeah, so
If I give you a chance.
yeah. This is that one. The next slide is about paths that are specific to achieving the goals that the grantor has in mind for this position. And so these are engaged wildfire mitigation groups, which is an excellent representation of the groups. Support the information management systems. Sue mentioned the GIS hub that the county is developing, identify community needs, evaluate existing and potential funding opportunities. This is a realm that honestly everybody else in the room knows more about than I do, but I'm working to create a central location, a living list of these opportunities that can support the strategizing for the county in general. And then participate in education and outreach. So thus far, for my fire mitigation group engagement, for those of you who don't look at a map of El Dorado County every day, this is a map of El Dorado County. We've got Folsom Lake to the west, Tahoe in the east. Next slide. These are the 29 fire safe councils that are represented. And if you go to the next slide, please, Ken. I visited 21 out of the 29 going to meetings or participating in projects or community events, phone calls. Jimmy and I have had several phone calls. So it's been really fun to interact with everybody, and I'm just really impressed at the energy and effort that you all are putting into your communities. It's remarkable. It's really fun to support you and as I'm able in your endeavors. And so I think we skipped a slide, but as far as reporting to California Fire Safe Council on interaction, they go by zip code. So I have one zip code that I haven't been able to hit, and that's Pilot Hill. I'm ready to connect with. Boom. Can we contact her? Hosts of other groups. This is just from one report I've submitted to the county, but there are many other groups that I'm interacting with. And they're just great. Everybody's got good energy and is working hard and is very supportive. Oh, here this is. I don't know how this happened. Go ahead.
You good? Okay.
Here we go.
Is that good? All right.
Okay, so then information systems, this is pretty supportive role, and it comes in some indirect forms. These forms are some lists that I'm developing, which track the fire mitigation group, and they track available funding. And we want to be able to have that information at a centralized location for the county strategy, so we can develop plans that incorporate our partners with the Forest Service, with CAL FIRE, with CLM, with communities, all of that. So I'm recording those, I'm developing a questionnaire to help organize data that will be useful on a county level and will be useful for reporting projects to state funders. And whatever use they have also, there are many efforts like this happening throughout the state, and it's kind of difficult to create something that everybody can use. But we're following a CAL FIRE guideline because CAL FIRE is the all of this. Seems like the best choice. And then. Yeah, we should move on. Thank you. It was the way. Next. Oh, community needs. Okay, so. I think the biggest purpose and a remaining need, this isn't something that it's just constant, and you just need to be aware of it, is how siloed our conversations or our goals are. Maybe a community will design a project and there's a similar project going on next door, but those communities aren't necessarily talking about it. Maybe within communities, people want to start a Firewise community, but so do their neighbors, and they kind of talk about it. And that scale expands to local government, regional government, state government. So part of my job is to just kind of say, hey, keep this at the front of your brain. Who haven't you talked to yet? What do we need to do? How can you be the bridge? A lot of folks want to do projects, they're looking for funding, that's ongoing. And then.
No, you might back up. I might have jumped the gun. You might back up.
But so then this is community outreach I've been involved in. I participated in the fair and Master Gardeners with Alice and Sand Ridge. I'm happy to go wherever you want me to be and talk about whatever you want me to talk about. I'll do my best. And it's just been really fun getting to know everybody and to help you work toward a more resilient community. So thank you for including me. Thank you for your hard work. And I look forward to continuing that.
Thank you, Maya. And so just adding on to what we've been asking her to do, and she talked about, and it's come up more than once today, Firewise communities. And it's a program in our county that none of us have really ever been able to try to put it somewhere to help facilitate and coordinate. And I think all of us who have done Firewise, worked on Firewise communities, we've all just reached out to each other or tried to go to folks that we know have done it before, but really haven't had sort of this consistent approach to how we can help people with the consistent information. And the landscape has changed quite a bit in the last several years, with the insurance industry providing discounts to recognized Firewise communities, with the National Fire Protection Association, who runs the program, in partnership with the states. Particularly here in California, there are some unique attributes to California's program relative to action plans and other activities. And so temporarily what we've done is Maya's been willing to step up and help us facilitate at least being a place where we can start the process. She's now been officially named as a regional coordinator within the Firewise portal. And so we're working closely, both wearing our Fire Safe Council hats, but also with the county to find how we can continue to sort of facilitate going forward, ensuring that if a community wants to become Firewise, sort of what's the landscape? How do they access fire professionals to assist with doing community assessments? Where do they get the tools and resources they need to put a good program forward? So we're really just sort of getting started doing it this way, but Maya's really been kind of leading this effort with us to get it done. So I wanted to put that plug in there, Maya.
And just one.
Yeah, unfortunately, we are like overlapping. Sure.
Shay, thank you, Mike. Oh, good
Would
question.
it be possible to share that presentation so that the various fire safe councils, when they meet, you're more than welcome to come present yourself, but have that as just to say, hey, here's another resource.
Yep, happy to share and happy to visit.
And I want to say I'm happy to share, we can post it. I just don't want to make sure I want to make sure we physically can do that. So if you're okay with that, I'd like to put a link on the, so we'll just technically to make sure that happens, but yeah, we'll absolutely commit to that.
Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you, Maya. All right, with that, item 8, committee reports. I'm going to turn it to Pat Dwyer for grants and funding. And we also have Jessica Isabel online, zooming in as our grants facilitator, if you will. So Pat.
Thank you very much, Ken. Well, back in October, we anticipated this next round of CAL FIRE grants coming at us. So we sent out to every council a request that said, hey, if you want us to be the fiscal sponsor, that means use our 501c3 and our corporate bylaws to sponsor your grant, send us a little paragraph saying, here's what we think we want to do. And we'll take a look and prioritize and then try to deal with all the requests. In the past, things were different. The grant availability was a lot smaller. We were real happy to get a $100,000 or $200,000 project. And in the past, we said, we'll take all comers. You know, we'll sponsor, if you want to put in the work to do the project description and all those kind of things, then we'll be happy to do your sponsor. As you can see from the treasurer's report, we've been very, very successful in getting $14 million worth of grants and many, many grants to manage and operate. So our capacity became limited as to what we could do. As a response to that October email, we got 7 requests from various fire safe councils that said, yeah, we'd like to put in for grant. Here's kind of what we're thinking about. 2 of those were for planning grants like the CWPP that says Community Wildfire Protection Plan, that says, you know, what needs to be done around our community and kind of make a plan so that when grant opportunities come in, you can say, here's how we're going to execute the plan. We got 2 requests for planning, and the committee referred those back to the wildfire resilience group saying, hey, they're putting together a strategy for the whole county. Why don't we incorporate these 2 planning areas into the rest of the county strategy? We got 1 request for infrastructure improvement, and that was some water tanks in Oak Hill. Where are you, Lester? There you are. That just basically doesn't qualify for a CAL FIRE. So that left us 4 other proposals, 2 of them pretty large projects. The Highway 50 corridor was one, and the Caldor Fire Recovery in Grizzly Flats was the other. We referred both of those to Mark, and the RCD will be the fiscal sponsor for those 2. And then we had 2 others, smaller, Royal Equestrian Estates and Cool Pilot Hill, that said, hey, we want the county to be the the fiscal sponsor. We said, okay, we'll give it a shot. So that's kind of where we are right now with our grants and applications. In the meantime, CAL FIRE's come out with guidance, both guidance for the grant application and guidance for using the new portal, the eCivis portal, to do the actual application. It's a learning curve for all of us, and I would highly encourage everybody actually, to go on the CAL FIRE website, click on the grants drop down, and there's a webinar on there that was recorded that they talk about this. The world is changing. It's different from when we had the woohoo $100,000 grants here, there, little pieces. They're now looking at $5 million, you know. This is old Pat talking, but there's $120 million available on this program statewide. CAL FIRE doesn't want 1,000 grant applications for $100,000 each. And if you just kind of do the math, it looks like $120,000 divided by $5,000 says about 24 counties will be serviced. So that's just kind of something to file in your basket. They kind of allude to that in the webinar training, but don't really, there's not a hard and fast rule, but you can kind of read the tea leaves to see what's going on. The other thing they emphasized in that training is Patrick. They said, make sure if you want a grant, contact your unit forester, who's Patrick Daniels throughout, who's the designee, and get them involved early in the process. Well, we're late in the process right now. So you need to, if you're moving forward, no matter if we're the fiscal sponsor or not, you need to work with Patrick and say, here's our proposed projects. What do you think? Is this gonna fit? What else do you have going on? So you need to work with Patrick. You also need to work with Mark, because no matter who sponsored these grants in the past, or whether they came from Jacoby and the Forest Service, or whether they came from BLM, or whether they came from CAL FIRE, it always goes around in a big circle and comes back to Mark.
I think that was a good thing, Mark.
You're positive you want.
Mark will do it. Prescription, Mark will do it. And Mark's trouble is he doesn't know how to say no. And so there's a lot of work in the RCD, and you need to get him involved again early in this project process. So that's pretty much all that I have to report from the grants committee. I'll take stabs and arrows now.
Thank you.
Here it is. Working fine with Camino Fire State Council, and pleasure to see you in person because I talked with him on. I just wanted, I have a question and then quick background. What the Camino Fire State Council did with 3 other fire state councils, one Firewise, we put in a request for the Highway 50, or what we wanted for our project was the Highway 50 shaded fuel break, south side of the freeway. And when we looked and we were doing our homework, we realized we met all the CCI requirements. We looked at multi-agencies and fire state council's involvement. We used our CAL FIRE CWPPs and looked at 7 miles along the south side of Highway 50. Our project is not shovel ready, but we also understood that the grant has avenues to address that. The community that are involved, knowing Highway 50, we know that we look at Highway 50 as our main emergency access artery. If the south side happens to have an ignition, the predominant winds are southwest. So the fire spread goes up those canyons northeasterly, directing towards Highway 50. The one thing we who are community members up there understand that fire season runs, and this is an important piece for us, concurrently with the Apple Hill season. Our area has over 1.2 million people visiting our area per year. These people are getting intoxicated, I put down, with our Apple products. They're sugared up.
They're sugared up. They're sugared up.
In our area, they also read phones. Okay, that's an important thing. They have social media, but they do not understand that they may get an emergency. So our point was, it looks that the grant hopefully
we'll be looking to you, Mark, and the RCD for funding, since it did not sound that the El Dorado County Fire Safety Council has a capacity. But we really want to make sure, and we appreciate the fact that projects are getting coordinated at a county level. And Sue, thank you for helping coordinate those pieces and understanding the recognition. But what was handed to us was the priority sounded that the grant needed to be shovel ready. And from our standpoint, that absolutely supersedes public safety in the Camino Public Pines area, with Cedar Grove involved in that. It did not take into account the community input and for support that went along with it. So what we would like to know is, since our grant, that it sounded like we're changing process. When I went back to the bylaws, we just need to look at those and redo those so that they match per process of how we go about doing things. What should we be saying then to the community? Because we were asked by this council to go back and reconsider doing the north side by the American River, which does not have to do with as much public safety. Knowing our area, if there is a wildfire going on, not only are we going to be moving thousands of our residents in the area, because it's a highly populated area. We got thousands, hundreds of thousands of visitors going on during that time. And we also have the livelihood of the Appleville businesses, which bring in approximately $60 million per year into our county. That's what they're making it. So when you think of our tax base alone, and if we lose those because we haven't taken care of the Highway 50 corridor between Camino and Public Pines, we may have a real issue. So we'd like to know, what do we take back to our council to say, instead of, well, we're not going to do that this year. Look at your north side and possibly put the grant in next year to be considered, when we know that fire danger is here almost year round. That's my question.
Well, I think you answered your own question. And what we did was say, this project is not mature at this point. So let's plan it. Let's work with the unit forester and CAL FIRE and Mark and get it grant ready for the next cycle.
How is it not grant ready when isn't the grants, and again, be new in this process, isn't the grant process also to build in getting project shovel ready? So we could apply for the grant and look and go through that, getting it ready so that we're not going year to year to year, not having the work done and still having hundreds of, well, millions of people coming up visiting and trying to get those residents out at the same time.
So Dorothy, I think maybe we can, he put his hand up. I think a lot of this may be enlightening with again, when the Fire Safe Council leadership, after we met with the grants committee, we took this to the advisory committee, the project. And so we know there's other things going on. The Highway 50 corridor is bigger than just Camino and Pollock Pines, right? There's threats from Placerville to Khyvers and beyond. So we knew there were other activities and work going on. Yes, it does represent a change. The change is we can't do these things by ourselves anymore, right? So we want to go and reach out and ask this bigger group, how does this fit in? So one, it could be truly supported in the right way. I can tell you the feedback from the advisory committee, with everybody thought it was a good project. I mean, there was nobody that said, this was from Scott Rogers there. The entire group felt very strongly. It was but it was really going back to what Pat said. So I think Mark can really shed some light, because he shared with us what's really going on Highway 50 and the challenges that they've had putting projects and what they're doing.
We're involved with, for example, the Regional Forest and Fire Capacity Program. We're working with the Mule Deer, Wild Fifth Federation, the American Forest Foundation, Forest Service, EAP. There's a grants committee forum that there's like 5 of them that I'm involved with, right? And the project proponents are all bringing forth projects, and they're very involved with, building projects, soliciting support at the state level, and bringing in a lot of money. And there's only a finite amount of money. Personally, and why we're here is that the grassroots approach and the community, advocacy for these projects, represent the most important projects in my mind. And as an RCD, we focus on private landowner treatments and only put public land treatments where they complement, private lands. And so when we see these projects, they inherently are private. And you can't supplement that. El Dorado County separates itself because of what you do. So that being said, when we heard about and this goes with every single project, and there's a lot of people in this room who can vouch for what I'm about to say as far as how we approach projects and getting them shovel ready, in that when we saw this project, we're like, oh, wow, okay, it's a roadside treatment along a major highway corridor. Wow, okay, so what did we do under the Climate Act 50 initiative to develop the north side treatment scope of work? And I know that you work with CAL FIRE, Forest Service, Caltrans, private, and it took us over a year just to get approach. It took us, the NEPA documentation from Forest Service. The Roadrunner decision memo was the letter authorizing this, federal NEPA documents that gave us the ability to implement the project. The coordination of resources to conduct archaeological surveys on a 59-mile-long field road was expensive. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars just for the resources. The biological, whose jurisdictional authority over accepting a biological report? Is it Caltrans? Is it Forest Service? Is it the funding agency? Is it CAL FIRE? Who has jurisdictional authority? Who's going to make those arrangements, and how is that going to be arranged and understood? So we formed a good neighbor authority, and that good neighbor authority agreement was one of the first good neighbor authority agreements in the entire region. That good neighbor authority agreement channeled money from the Forest Service to CAL FIRE to the RCD. We were able to build in CCC crews into the scope of work and authorize that agreement. That agreement took us a year, And so then we go out, and then we had the money, and we were going to implement that project in California. And so we moved that down to another FA50 down the side park project. So we were like, hey, maybe there's a complementary project that we can move forward with if it works.
That would be us.
Right, exactly. And so we were like, if the Georgetown Fire Council wanted to do work along Highway 193, we would tell them, we don't have time. We don't have the ability to put that project on the ground right now, because we haven't taken the steps to the plan or the permits or anything else together. We'd say that, same thing with Mormon Immigrant Trail. We've been trying to get Mormon Immigrant going for a long time, and there's certain parts of it that we're doing because we've got, support to get the plan and the NEPA and the environmental together and all that. Is it slow? Is everybody happy? No, but is the work done? It's only if for when. So that's why we went with the north side and said, hey, maybe we can do the north side. In talking to the Forest Service, they're like, the Roadrunner EA that authorized the work to be done prior to Caldor isn't Caldor hit, and the environmental conditions are totally different. They need to reevaluate that, NEPA does, and they're not going to be able to do that within here because their focus is Caldor. They're trying to get a NEPA document for Caldor recovery. So that NEPA document needs to be reassessed. So we may not even have the ability to utilize the existing environmental documentation to the north side of the project. So we may not be able to, actually get a grant proposal and get the scope of work defined sufficient enough for the application in by the deadline. That being said, is there any chance that we can come close to the south side of Highway 50 project? I don't think there's any way that we put together a scope of work that details how we're going to do this and get commitments from the jurisdictional authority entities to file their NEPA documents specifically with application to get that project on track. That's my personal opinion. Would we commit to doing it? We will commit to doing it because we already have. But the one thing I will say is that our job is to maintain the integrity of every dollar that we get in our county. And we have to make sure that we meet the budget, scope, and term of every project, because they won't give us any more money if we default on a grant or a project. Right? And if we default on a project, I've got somebody else in the room saying, you should have went with us, so we have to measure that and balance it out and put together feasibility and commit to it. And so I would say from here on out, we're still the two projects you mentioned, we still are committed, but we want to talk about it meet with Patrick, meet with the Forest Service and say, okay, this is the project. Give us your input, give us the information you need and make it real so we can know where we stand. You know what I mean? And then take the next step.
I think that that's. Yeah. Thank you for having it back. We greatly appreciate what RCD's doing in work, and Ken, what you're also doing, you're working, getting Fire Safe Councils United with all the other plans that are going on, so that we have a different, and when a few of our emails that got batted back and forth, we do just probably want to look at our bylaws. So that it falls, they're updated to the point, because we're moving forward, because obviously what I've been hearing too, is that we're moving very quickly because we understand. We're kind of behind the 8 ball in a lot of ways regarding fire, but I am pleased that this council just heard, don't forget Apple Hill. And don't forget how much money that whole area and all those businesses, because we go, you know, these are beautiful orchards and these guys are bringing these big bucks into our county. And we also want to make sure that those are safe, let alone getting our residents out and all those visitors with those phones that are usually recording things that we'd rather them not be recording at the time they're recording and posting on Facebook or Twitter or wherever else they're posting. So.
And then
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you. And I just want to say, I want to change hats. I just want to go on what Sue was talking about and what the advisory committee for the OWAPR committee is that we as an RTP, you know, it would be really great for us to come in and say, hey, here's our projects, right? And be selfish. Because there's a lot of constituency, specifically in the ag that we could serve and the values at risk and the priorities. But we don't, because we've committed to saying, let's take a step back. Let's establish a process and a plan that helps us identify risk values. What's the criteria? What are the quantitative values that we assign to that? What's the, collaborative nature? What's the readiness to proceed? Where are other agencies coming to the table with and helping us advance these priorities? So we have multi-jurisdictional design projects, so we can apply for a $5 million grant, on a landscape level. What's the follow-up maintenance obligations? What are the long-term commitments from SMUD, EID, SBI, Forest Service, land managers who have responsibilities to not depend on publicly funded projects, but they have to invest in the maintenance and protection of communities. So those are things that we're trying to understand and put together so that we can bring those resources to the Fire Safe Council to help build our plan and understand that project as it's represented on the landscape through the GIS database interface. So you can look at the project where it relates and hopefully give us some direction and give you direction. So we're all on the same page as we move forward. So it's a process and we appreciate your advocacy because again, those are the most important projects. Just bear with us as we go through this process of trying to. Yeah. So anyway, I hope that helps a little.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy. I've been doing this for 35 years and the challenges that we're facing, really, we haven't seen before, but I've never been a part of an organization, and I mean that collectively, of people rowing in the same direction. And I think what we're learning now is we just have to figure out how to.
Together.
Well, yeah, exactly. And kind of learn how to do it more efficiently because it's changing. And you said it's changing so fast. We're trying to catch up and put some things in place. And you're right. We should go take a look at our bylaws to make sure that we're keeping up with that. Again, and it goes back to the Treasury report. We are working hard to make everything as transparent as we possibly can. That's why we called for our own audit of our entire financials. I mean, we are putting everything out there because we know all of this is building this foundation to build on going forward. But it's taken some effort and work, and we know we're behind the power curve. So again, appreciate. And I mean this to everybody, appreciate everybody's patience as we learn it. And the bottom line is we just have to keep talking and communicating and as we kind of bring this forward. So again, thank you all for the patience. So anyway, back to you, Pat.
Okay, thank you. I think we've been aware of the threat in Apple Hill in the county forever. It was in the as you and Chuck pointed out, it was in our CWPB in previous years. So we've always been aware of the threats. We just need to take the piecemeal attack to fix it and bring it all together because we've been piecemeal. We've been piecemeal in the way that we did our CWPP with each little fire safe council saying, here's where the threat is, here's what we should do. And now I think the resiliency group is starting to say, wait a minute, we need to bring this into a more cohesive strategic plan for the county. The same thing is true of our fuels reduction. You know, Heather did a lot of work along Weber Creek piecemeal without incorporating many of the other efforts that are going on. So that's all we're trying to do. It's not like a slap down saying, oh, thanks for the input, go away. We're trying to say, how can we work to make this really come together? And, you know, the threat's been there for years. We've had it identified issues in the CWPP for many years. And this isn't the only year. I know you're new, you came on. Now we just need to work to integrate that into the bigger plan. Okay. What Mark said too.
One more time, Chuck. There you go.
Chuck's been pushing for a larger landscape strategic plan and approach for a long time, especially based on his experience in FEMA and grant. So yeah, Chuck, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm very pleased. I was glad that we're doing a larger, more integrated, more coordinated approach. But there is a question going forward. How are we gonna get all this integrated information? How does that relate to the local fire safe councils? Because in the past, if they had a CWPP and if they went out and looked and talked among themselves and did community consultations, they decided what's the first priority project, and a grant opportunity comes, they should go for it. And that's what Dorothy has done. And now they're getting told that that's not gonna work. You know, that even though that CAL FIRE has provisions to fund getting things shovel ready in the first year, that's not gonna work as it used to. What are we gonna tell them their role is in the future? And I think that, I'm not sure you have the answer to that yet. But I think that's where we have to be going. We have to be saying, what are the local grassroots representatives that's going to be asked to do the interface with all this? You know, are they going to have an active role, or are they supposed to wait until somebody else gets the project ready and ask them to do it, or what?
So I can hit that, Pat. That you hit the nail, the question square on the head, Chuck, is what, you know, what is all of our role as the community going forward? And first and foremost, and I can tell you this has been the discussion from the advisory committee and from, you know, the county's program, is that nothing, and Mark said it, nothing can replace the grassroots, all of this here. And so this always has to be the focus. What we have to do and where things are going, and we talked, if you go to the Board of Supervisors presentation on the 10th that Chris talked about, and Sue, we talk a little bit about it. We've been directed by the Board of Supervisors to prepare a wildfire strategy for the county. And it's really, it's like a super CWPP, if you will. It's, you know, our CWPP for the West Slope doesn't cover all of the West Slope. And so the county wants to look at the county geographically, very holistically, and get back out on the ground and hear from communities. There are many areas that aren't represented by fire safe councils yet. They still pose a hazard, and there are risks associated with those hazards that are important to the people that are there and important to other parts of the county that may be threatened by that. And again, Apple Hill, Highway 50 corridor, all those are perfect examples, but there are lots of other things around the county where there is critical infrastructure, water supplies, hospital. I mean, there are all these pieces and elements that we need to look at in one big package and say, El Dorado County collectively, and I don't just mean the government, but I mean all of us, we got our plan together, and we have a plan for engaging and how it's not that anybody's trying to dictate to everybody, well, this is the project you're going to do this week, Chuck, but we can't anymore just independently bring projects up from different parts of the county without considering what's the big picture, because I think we could all agree it's important to protect that core. It's important to protect our hospital and our sheriff's facilities and our schools and all those pieces of infrastructure that if they fail, we can't support governing and we can't support our population. So we have to look, and it doesn't take away from the people that live in Outingdale, who in their sphere of influence, I mean, a fire for them is it, right? But then what we as this bigger group have to step back and go, yes, we get the risk to Outingdale, but we also get the risk to the Highway 50 corridor. And what makes Apple Hill more important than Outingdale, right? I think if you were to ask Janet, that's in the Occam Fairplay fires, and she'll tell you today, I've got people in Outingdale, they're wondering, why aren't we doing a $25 million FEMA grant in Outingdale? So this is the point. We all have a vested interest in the communities we're part of in this county, but we can't keep competing with each other, because we all can say, hey, mine's more important than yours. So what we have to be able to do is step back and have a strategy that looks at the whole county, and we mutually recognize where things are at, and that we have an articulated plan. And this goes back to Chuck's question, that we can go right back out to Janet's folks in Outingdale. We can go to Apple Hill. We can go to the Divide. We can go to Strawberry, and we can talk about, yep, here's what's going on. And here's what we're looking at. Here's sort of this bigger landscape. And here are the opportunities right now, and the emphasis. A lot of what Mark talked about. So that's where this is going. And we have to be able to communicate this right back down to all of our folks on the ground. But at the same time, we have to continue listening to everybody out on the ground as to what's important to you all and the people that you're working with, so that we can inform the strategy and continue that communication piece. But we're not all going to get everything that we want every day. We can't do it anymore. So we've got to start working together to figure out this way to sort of manage this as a team in the county and get there. So I got a lot of questions. All right.
Is that the other piece of it is, yes, the grants may allow for the preliminary work done in the first year, but we just heard from Mark that a year is not long enough. So going out and getting that grant, any grant that may provide for that preliminary work to be done up front, is it a realistic expectation that we're going to be able to get that done? And unfortunately, Mark just told us that with the changes in the NEPA document and the other things that he needs to do in that area, in any area, because that NEPA document is changing for the whole, county. So we just need to make sure that before, when we're thinking about it, is the capacity there to get each of the milestones done in a timely manner in terms of the grant? Because the last thing Mark wants to do is fail you, me, all of us as a fire safety council, CAL FIRE, the Forest Service, and give himself a bad process. I mean, nobody wants to do that. So that's the other piece of this communication of having this group get together and talk. This, is amongst ourselves, can we do what we're asking?
And that year you're talking about, Chuck, you're right. We used to be able to say, give us your TWCP projects, and then we'll do the first year. Those were the $100,000 grants that Logtown, Copperton, Sierra Springs, Gold Ridge, Lake Hills, Kelsey. Logtown, you name it, and we've done those projects in that way. But the state's telling us they want bigger projects. And the evolution came as an example of South County, where they said, okay, we've got our individual projects, but let's bundle these. And they did that, and they came up with a unique strategy. The first one, I think, is an example of bundling those individual projects into one big one. And the state recognized it and said, okay, good job. Now let's do that. And so we made it by putting together these individual projects. The scope, and I'm hesitant because Highway 50 is a big project. And I'm just speaking from reference, but yeah, that's why is that we aren't working on a small project. It's a bigger project. And that's the only reason why it takes a long time for the reality.
Well, and as we go forward then, too, just to tag on to that, it sounds like as we're trying to get a bigger plan, that we need to remember the grassroots and how do we, as fire safety councils, and when do we start to ask for input so that before you guys are meeting, you have some background on, you're right, all of El Dorado County is important. There isn't one place that we don't want to keep safe. We want it all safe. So how do we go about though gathering information from our area? Because Camino Fire Safety Council is new this year. And so we're looking at Camino, but we also thought, gosh, if it goes, we need to get Cedar Grove and all kinds involved in those areas. But so the way we got our information to you was via this grant portal. So maybe do discussions start to come in July or the inputs coming in?
Yeah,
I think change the process.
I think what I recommended to both you and Chuck is start right now. Start working through that portal. Have you read the handbooks?
Mhm.
Did you watch the training?
Mhm.
Okay, then you understand what's going on, and there's a lot of questions in the application. The question might be short, but the answer is really long and complicated. So you need to start working on those like right now.
Which we have been, actually.
Yeah.
So let's go, hit Paul real quick and then over to Alice.
Yeah.
No,
So just an observation, this is a good problem to have. Seriously, it is, because what it's building on is the shoulders of those that came before us and put a great process in place. And we're outgrowing it. And I think we're blessed to have this challenge. And having done significant international work in my career, I dealt with this on an international level. I think it's an analogy we used, which was a simple one, is that it's like an egg. The core of which is the yolk, which is fluid and moves. And then the outside part is where the local areas are working, and we need to be fluid in that regard. And so I think keeping that concept in mind, it's don't stop doing the good you're doing, recognize there's a core, and that core they have to work in unison, and there's some yin and yang there. So that's I just would offer that.
Okay, thank you, Paul. So we have Green, Alice and then Greenstone. Sorry.
State council would do it. And for example, having an advisory committee that then comes and tells people what decisions are made, makes those people not necessarily feel like they have as much input as they did. And when you're talking about a big picture, which I love, that's so important, how we get the input for that is critical. And for example, mobile homes, no one's mentioned mobile homes, but that's an important one. And I don't think any of us live in that here, but that's such a risk out there. So I think we really need to focus on expanding that. So it's not just advisory committees making the decisions and then telling people, but getting the input well done through really well worded emails and meetings and whatever that means.
Yes.
I think this has really been a great conversation. I mean, this has really been very helpful. And in reading through this CAL FIRE, the prevention grants, sounds like mine, you have a lot of work to do. But passed the eligibility criteria and said HOAs that are non-501(c)(3)s are out. So I'm a little dense here. Are you saying that we could piggyback on if we had a big enough project that we were going to see we could piggy on to? Because RCD or the CSD, if that's what it says in here, we have to piggyback onto one of these other agencies.
Correct. You can't be the fiscal sponsor for your own grant because you're not a corporation 501(c).
But if I was Auburn Lake Trails, which is a 501(c), we could put.
And they are going to put in.
Right,
So,
okay.
but having said that, you can come to us or Mark or your fire district and say, hey, we want you to be the fiscal sponsor for our grant. And they are eligible. And then you proceed from there.
Oh. If you're gonna be the fiscal sponsor for yourself, you have to manage the cash flow process of the grant.
Right. And do the audits and all the things that you heard.
Yeah, we've already decided we're not gonna. See it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the short answer is yes, you don't be a 501(c)(3). You do have to find a fiscal sponsor.
Okay, got it.
So I think, and obviously we probably want to bring this to a conclusion for at least this piece of it for today, but all of these points are extremely well taken. That's why we're here trying to talk about it. I guess what I would encourage everybody is to think outside the box. And it goes back to Chuck's question. Well, what is the expectation of the associate fire safe councils? So when I say think outside the box, so the CWPP says it has projects in it, right? And here's what we've noticed. Most of them are I mean, we're all part, we've done it, the same thing in the Fire Safe Council I'm part of in South County. It's roadside hazardous fuels reduction and fuel breaks. Right? And so we don't always have to, as a fire, first of all, the local Fire Safe Council or the county Fire Safe Council doesn't necessarily have to be the fiscal sponsor. We don't always have to just focus on fuel breaks. There are lots of, the RCD, others have capacity and have the ability to put in some of these larger projects. So going forward, if we're thinking we're challenged with being able to take on larger projects for all the reasons we've talked about today, there are other places and things we should make sure we're considering. And you've already heard a lot of this from the fire prevention officers, from Ron, you've heard it from you. The push in this state right now is the built environment, it's defensible space, and it's home hardening, right? And there is money out there for that. We are building an entire evaluation program based on the state's model to help us with that. And the $25 million grant that's partly funded by OES, the Office of Emergency Services, and mostly by FEMA and partly by the county, is focusing on the built environment, defensible space. And so what I think where a lot of where our people are, where they say it's in the built environment. And I think we have a huge role and opportunity to build on what can we do to help our communities in that space. And I mean, no one else can outreach to a neighbor like we can. When we talk about doing defensible space, you're gonna hear lots more about this in the coming months, but folks don't like inspections from agencies, but they do like their communities members coming out and talking to them and giving them an evaluation. That's where we can make a huge difference. And so I think we just need to keep thinking it's not always just about big project. I mean, we're talking to produce bigger projects, but a bigger project doesn't mean it has to be making a bigger fuel break. It can also mean, how do we have projects that are engaging community members in that built environment? And Alice has been doing a ton of work with us trying to work on, that's why the newsletter that I forgot to put out last night, but that's why there's so much we're working on this piece, because this is where home-to-home ignition is such a big component of why we're losing homes. And so again, let's just think beyond just the traditional, we do fuel breaks, because there are lots of others that have capacity. As long as we're at the table helping inform that, but we don't necessarily have to be the ones doing it. So I just put that out there. I think I don't see any questions online or comments. We're gonna.
Angel had last.
Oh, sorry, Angel, I'm sorry.
Can I get some sort of a reply back telling me what the steps?
I don't think I got anything for stuff.
Oh, Jessica.
Oops. I'll certainly look at them and try to give you some feedback. I think for this cycle, we're probably not gonna catch it.
Yeah, I'm not so much worried about when, I just need some directions to.
Okay, thank you very much. End of report.
Thank you, Angel, and the comments are all well taken. We have a lot of process work and information and things we need to do to make this work for everybody, and thank you. Okay, so catching up on the second committee report, we have a governance committee, and this is probably something we'll need to work on over time. But in reality, Karen manages for us. When we talk about governance, it's really the nuts and bolts of how we support the individual Fire Safe Council operations. The formality pieces of that. So Karen wanted to come back. She's got a couple of things that may or may not either fits under this or under her role as secretary. So, but I wanted to make
Or
sure
under the role of new council.
yeah,
So
you might be able to roll all this up into one.
just do it all in one. So one of the things that because I get questions on these things, there are a couple policies that just sometimes need reviewing for the associate councils. One, when you have events, and we're going to be coming into that season again where everyone's going to be putting on events, make sure you reach out to me to get your insurance. There are forms that need to be
filed with me so that I can turn it into your insurance, our insurance, so that we can get your additional insured. So if you're having it at a park or a lake or at a school, that we name them as an additional insured under our policy that our fire safe councils are under. So we want to make sure that you get those to me in a timely manner. Please don't send them to me and tell me you need it in 2 days. The insurance company says, excuse me. So we need to get those in, a week, 2 weeks in advance if we can at least. The other thing is just a reminder to review the logo use policy. If you're going to use the policy or the logo for El Dorado County Fire Safe Council, you can find the logo use policy online. The big question is fundraising. We do have a fundraising policy. Our associate councils are allowed to accept donations. They are allowed to accept, as I think you told me one time, if someone offers you a used hot dog steamer, take it. You associate councils, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, are supposed to be somewhat self-supporting. Do you guys agree with that? They should, should be self-supporting. There's always questions, oh, you're an associated council, you're not a real 501c3, you can't do any fundraising. That's not true. We do have a fundraising policy. We do ask that you do not conduct raffles because we don't have a raffle permit and we don't intend to get one at this point, but we have alternatives to that. And if somebody wants to donate to you, they certainly can donate to your organization. We are under the umbrella. There are 28 associate councils under the umbrella of El Dorado County Fire Safe Council. With that said, with the logo use policy, you always want to be respectful of how you use the El Dorado County Fire Safe Council's name and their logo. The other thing is we recently updated our equipment use policy. So if you need to borrow equipment, there is a policy that you follow to do that, to get the equipment. Again, take my phone number. I don't care about you having my phone number, 209-765-8640. You can use my personal email, KarenPullen84@gmail.com. At any time, if you have any questions about the policies or the procedures, new councils, especially if you're concerned about setting up your own, having your own bank account, talk to me about it. And if you're a new council that formed at any time, call me. That's what I do, is I help you set up and get the information that you need so that you're well prepared to go into your processes. So any questions, please feel free to call me so I can clarify any questions on the equipment, using the logo, fundraising, tax deductible receipts, anything like that. Insurance, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me. Okay.
So, and
Oh, sorry.
thank you, Karen. And just to clarify, so we've covered not only the governance committee 8B, but that was your program report for new council formation.
Yes,
Okay.
I don't have any new councils that have come forward yet. And it also covers secretary stuff. So
All right, great.
I'm good.
Duly noted for the minutes. But I guess just to reiterate that there's a lot of moving parts and we don't have this perfect manual for, forming a new fire safe council. And so it's really truly the key people that are doing the governance work every day in this program is it's Karen and it's Janet, because they're working closely together on setting up the bank accounts. It's a bit complicated. So all I would encourage you to do is reach out. If you have any questions, just reach out to them early and they'll help walk you through it. Okay. So with that, let's move back up. 9A, the chipping program. That's sort of a combination of Pat and Jessica. Did you want to start anything off there, Pat?
Well, I think I'll turn it over to Jessica for chipping and the defensible space.
Okay, perfect. So we'll do A and B together. Jessica, you have the floor.
Hi, so for chipping program, we only did 13 jobs for the month of December, and so far only 11 applications for January. So I know that we allowed for 2 opportunities per address per year. I didn't know if some councils wanted to put out to their community that we need more work. It's really slow right now. I know a lot of the contractors are doing the best they can to stay up with the jobs, with the storms and whatnot. But we're doing pretty good. More work would be nice for chipping. And then in terms of defensible space, right now we have about 100 applications. I'm going through the emails, and I might actually end up closing the program and not accepting any more applications. And people have just been doing the best they can with the storms and whatnot, but we're doing good.
Well, and just to kind of clarify both of those, on the chipping program, we know how well funded that is through the CAL FIRE grant. The weather has obviously been one challenge, but we've also, and really want to reiterate, you are now eligible, each homeowner, for 2 chipping visits a year, not just 1. We really want to reiterate for people to get this program advertised and out there, recognizing for all of this, we are struggling a bit with the website and the online application. And so Jessica, we have her following up with every individual who has a problem with the online application to handle that directly via phone to help fill that out until we can get these challenges cleaned up. It's also been a challenge internally with the system, because the system also assigns contractors based on location, et cetera. So some moving parts there. The defensible space program, it is another example of a program that's morphing. We haven't closed it because we had a target of 120 jobs. We haven't quite finished those, so we were keeping it open. But as you can see in the grants report from Janet, we have more money in the hopper to fund that program, and we'll have more coming again this year from Title III. So what we're trying to do is decide, you close it, or do we just keep it open on a continuous basis? And so we want to be very clear with people as we articulate this out. So before any program gets closed, we'll be working with Jessica. We'll make that decision and let everybody know, because there is the potential it could stay open if we think we have an opportunity to keep doing more work there. So I see some hands coming up. Let me start with Elizabeth, and then we'll go to Chris.
So I'm the chipping. Region. We have a lot of trees down, blocking roads, people clear it, make it accessible, but there's a lot of work to do along our roadways. And they were asking about kind of doing group work days to take care of some of this. Is there a way for us to utilize the chipping program to efficiently accommodate all this work that our area wants to do? Like, can I put in a batch request, basically? It may cover more than 2 or 3 parcels, or become more a region. That's what
It's
Let me.
Yeah, go ahead, Pat.
Your question at the same, because I think they're very similar. We can certainly sponsor chipping day, and we have and do sponsor chipping days for each community. It takes some effort on your part, because you have to communicate to your neighbors and say, hey, we're planning to have a chipper day on Tuesday, November, whatever. And so get all your piles ready, because that's one of the main complaints that people have with our chipping program, is they fill out the chipping request and it goes into the hopper, and they don't really know when the contractor is going to come do the chipping. So you can help by coordinating that and saying to your neighbors, okay, this is the day we're going to do it, and you can work with Jessica and me if you need to. The only thing is, each participant, each chipping pile has to have a request on that computer form. And the reason for that is we capture not only how big is the pile, how tall, how wide, so kind of give the chipping contractors an idea how to schedule. But it also captures the time that the individuals spend preparing the pile that can be credited to you for your FireWise certificate. And it's a requirement of the grant, actually. We counted that as a quote match in the grant. So that's why we have to have all those applications filled out online. They're not difficult. And so you just have everybody fill out their application. Contact Jessica and say, what's a good day to have our community chipping day? Get that information out to your neighbors and say, you know, come on, neighbors, fill out this form. And you could even help them if they had computer challenges or whatever. And that's the way we go forward.
Can I follow up on that?
Yeah, if it's really brief, because I want to get to, there's one.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so having a technology background and hearing the request from 80 homes in our community that is a FireWise community. Part of their first year plan is to actually do some chipping. It's actually baked into there. Has there been anyone that's created a spreadsheet that has all the information that is required to use the website? And I think the people, their FireWise community is given a spreadsheet, and then it's consistent across everyone that they could then in their meeting fill out, and then they would delegate to one person in their FireWise community to sit there and be the data entry person. That could be an option, or alternatively, if there's a standard spreadsheet that could be passed to the Fire Safe Council, and the Fire Safe Council could enter it. I mean, I think both options are viable, but which one makes the most sense in trying to coordinate it and streamline it?
That sounds like a question that could be answered by somebody that has experience in the technology field. So the answer is no right now. It fills out each form. Each form is independent, and then it goes into a database, and we extract a spreadsheet out of that.
So can we get the structure of that spreadsheet?
It's on the form.
The spreadsheet is on the form?
No, the form says each field to go into the.
Right, so what I'm.
So Paul, we're happy to totally get where you're going, and absolutely anything we can do to make things easier, but we'll definitely want to talk offline.
Okay.
Right now, the process is what it is. If you're having trouble getting into the website, just again, contact Jessica directly. She's working with homeowners and folks to make that happen. So I see she's raising her hand. I haven't forgotten you, Chris. Jessica, do you have something for this?
Yeah, I just wanted to put out, if any Fire Safe Council wants to contact me to coordinate with the contractors to schedule a week for your community to be serviced, I'm more than willing to coordinate that. You just need to contact me directly. I'm going to put my cell phone number out for those interested. It is 530-957-2446. That is my direct line, 957-2446. So if you want to coordinate for your community, just give me a call and I will contact the contractors for your area and we can figure that out.
But you still have to fill out the request.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I don't mind if they do an Excel spreadsheet for the community and I can input it into our database. If I have the information, I can do it. I just need all the information.
So at the end of the day, I think obviously it's a workload piece. It's important. It's also how the contractors get paid by job. So that's another reason why it's important to do it individually. Don't pummel Jessica with requests, but yes, this is an opportunity to get more group work done. So just work directly with her and be patient as we kind of work through that. So Chris.
Well, Jessica, this is directed to you and to the rest of the board. January has been one of the most wet months in my 45 years in El Dorado County. I've got close to 30 inches already of rain based on my rain gauge, changing it every 4 to 5 inches. why is that important? Because your question just a few minutes ago was the fact that it seemed that it was storm related. We're not what is it, OES, or we're not that type of organization. We have a chipping program for fire safety, wildfire safety, not for cleaning up down trees and other things that come with a more broad perspective. To the board, then I would say that this is a policy question. You know, we can do exactly what has been asked here. We got some down trees, so we'll set it up. We want chipper to come in and we want it chipped up, but I don't believe that that's the intent of the chipping program. And so I throw that out to the rest of the board. It's more than just the administration, Jessica, of the program we have. It has to do with the purpose of our program. So I throw that out.
Yeah, no, thank you for reminding everyone of that, Chris. Bottom line is, we need to be able to tie the work that's being done back to the mission of the chipping program, which is ensuring that folks that are doing their defensible space clearance around their home have the ability to process that material. It gives them an outlet. That's why we have it. So it isn't for going out and, again, clearing down trees out in the back 40. I mean, we're going to kind of put a lot of people on the honor system when we talk about that. But again, this is why every homeowner has to apply separately, because there is a way to track really what's coming from each parcel. So yes, I want to reiterate that piece that Chris is saying, and we're not. I will tell you right now, we're not prepared to make any change, in that process, even based on the volume of what's out there. So with that, I'm gonna. I see Nakona has her hand up. Want to grab a microphone?
It was just a really quick comment to respond, because no, we are not an OES. Those types of situations. However, are these residents going to be leaving these trees and these chipping piles and things like that on their properties that then could become an issue come fire season? Are they capable of burning these piles? Are they going to get the right permits to do that while burn season is open? Or are they going to utilize the chipping program to clean up before the fires? Just comment, because it could become a problem if the homeowners aren't cleaning these things up.
All valid comments, Nakona. At the end of the day, we'll have to address all of those issues in a different process. The program in and of itself was set up to do defensible space around homes, and we've got to maintain the integrity of that, or we're not going to get done what we need to do with that program. So one more question on this from Elizabeth, and we're going to move on.
Does defensible space, does that include ingress and egress to the property?
No, defensible space is, unless someone can tell me the history, but defensible space is just that, what's required around an occupied structure, residential structure.
I just don't understand.
Well, we can certainly talk to the folks that built we can look online, but generally speaking, it's designed for helping folks meet the home defensible space requirement.
In accident.
Okay. Okay. So I think it's just important, though,
Is in terms of, we have roadside clearance, we have shaded field break, and we have defensible space. It is a unique topic. And we've been very good over the years in addressing that question of defensible space, not the broader perspective of how we can spend the money on a bunch of other things.
and I think what we'll do is, because obviously this question's coming up from lots of folks, I've heard it from others, and we'll try to put some information out, reiterate that so folks can take that back to their groups. And yeah, I think these are all conversations that the county, the state, all the partners are all going to be having over the course of the next few months as we sort of take stock of what's happened out there. And it's way beyond anything our chipping program is going to cover. So, but I do appreciate that. All right, moving on, I'm cognizant of the time. We're already 11 minutes past the end of the meeting. So I want to quickly move to item 9C, outreach and education. Alice.
Thank you. So maybe today or tomorrow. And I want to thank Karen Yu and also Megan Scott American Control for the very timely editing help. That was really appreciated. If anybody else ever has articles that they want to, either a topic you'd like to see covered or an actual article you'd like to write, please let me know. Let's see, for new stuff, we talked about that a little bit there. I haven't brought this yet because it's going to be an issue of where we're going to store the stuff. And I think we almost have that wired down now that it's going to be stored. They have to have more space if we get more tables and pop-ups and those kind of things. So just remind you that when you have events, it's not that I'm going to come out necessarily and put on this Pony show, but we do have stuff for you. If you have like 1 or 2 volunteers that can do a defensible space, we'll have hands-on materials for you and have displays you can borrow, in addition to the standard things like tables and chairs and chairs and pop-ups. So just letting you know about that will still be coming out when pretty soon we'll start buying more of that stuff. And then also in the last newsletter, I mentioned that we were trying to get a list of speakers for Fire Safe Council to use. And I gave an email that unfortunately I haven't been able to get into for a month. And so if anybody actually answered that and gave me ideas, I'm sorry that I didn't respond to you. Same thing, but if anybody responded to wanting to help with the website, I don't know if that's there. I'm still trying to get into it. So I just want to real quick also give my Gmail account to anybody who's trying to get a hold of me. And that's Alice Cancelo, which you see with a W there in the agenda at gmail.com. So that might be a better way to get a hold of me right now. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. And again, recognizing we're running late. Thanks for the abridged report. Any comments for questions for Alice? We'll be doing a lot more there in the coming months as well. All right, item 10, again, community council reports. Any updates from individual councils for the greater good? I see David.
Third Saturday in March, Paso Fire Safe Council was having a disaster. 60 different Main Street and Paso. The local known as the Midtown Mall. We're placed for Hero for 3 or 4 hours ago when the meeting started.
Other councils, that's all.
Yeah.
We'll just grab that one maybe.
So just what's happening in Greater Pembroke Park Area Fire Safe Council. We have a wildfire preparation series that's going on now. The first one dealt with a sandbox simulation, and the folks that we are collaborating with for this forum, I should say that first, is EDSO, Eldorado Hills Fire, Eldorado County Fire, CAL FIRE, Rescue Fire, Pembroke Park Fire. Those are all the fire districts in our council. And we had a sim table, which is basically a sandbox, about 8 by 8, being able to form the geographical terrain. We ran a fire simulation in 3 areas within our council to show how the fire would spread without defensible space and then with defensible space. It was eye-opening. We had over 70 people registered for that event, and participation was great. We had our second forum of this series, which was what is defensible space and how can you create it with effective resources in low to no cost. So that's just happened. The next 2 have to do with how do you put a plan together, and how do you lead when the order comes to say you got to go, and how are you ready for it? So we're building up to that, and that all leads up to our second to last one, which is how do you become an NFPA Firewise community? The last thing is a joint effort that's going to be in collaboration with the CSD to review all of those. And the plan is to have that as associated as a larger event and have multiple booths set up. So that's what's going on there. The other thing is we had got a question. We need to get an updated GIS for the mapping of our boundary, and I'm not sure where to go for that.
Dr. Steve Willis.
Okay. And then in our council, we're looking at ways to be efficient with the funds that we have. Can the councils utilize the County Fire Safe Council's mailing address so we can get rid of a PO box and update those fees?
I don't have to think through that. That might create some challenges. We can talk offline about
Okay,
that.
all right. So end of recording. Thank you.
Other councils? Karen? Sorry. That's good.
So just an update, Mosquito Fire Safety Council will be meeting next month to put together their yearly calendar. And just a reminder, and I know a number of councils have borrowed equipment from Mosquito Fire Safety Council. We have lots of good stuff, and you're always welcome to reach out to us again to borrow any of the equipment that we have. We'll even help deliver it if needed.
Greenstone.
We're having our first town hall meeting in Greenstone to talk about, we're having Battalion Chief Dan Gauss and we're having Maya Davis coming to talk about Firewise. We are going to be putting in our application soon for Firewise. We've been collecting all sorts of data for that from our homeowners. Some of it's been a little bit of a struggle because people get sensitive. They think that we're getting this data and getting it to everybody and their brother. But we've moved through some of those things. So that's where we're headed, and we're on our way.
It's awesome. Okay, not seeing any other hands online or in the room. Oh, we have one. Mike? Just ID yourself.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Ken. This is Mike Connolly with Auburn Lake Trails. For the 18th consecutive year, we received Firewise USA community status last November. Of the over 600 active Firewise communities in California, we were the first to receive that designation. The last week, the Bureau, a contractor for the Bureau of Reclamation, started fuel reduction work along the eastern boundary between Auburn Lake Trails and the Auburn State Recreation Area. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Okay. Very good. So moving on to item 11, I have no old business on the agenda. So lastly, for project reports, item 12, and I know it's been sort of a coalition of folks that we've kind of breezed through all three of these, but maybe David, I can turn to you and or Tamara to kick off the so far and others.
Is there some so far things? On February 23rd at 11 o'clock will be a biomass group meeting. That overlaps a bit with Chris, but the public's welcome to attend it, and if not sure to find it, we send you an email. But anyway, so February 23rd, biomass, and we're with Greg Stamp and anything else. Also, resource advisory committee, we're not getting much done, but we're short of members, and so if you want to reach out to me or Lester or Jennifer from the Forest Service, I think particularly the short on the elections and people who are appointed by electors. Let's see, see what else. There's one more. I will be attending the wrap. In fact, I did attend the last wrap. I sent to the executive committee my notes. Maybe that can be disseminated by everyone.
Sure.
Thank you.
reference.
Oh, wildfire. Millions of risk reduction and hazard protection.
Yep.
Thanks. So thanks. Done by United Policyholders, it's really always excellent. Last time we presented was from Marin County, where it's had an interesting oak woodland perspective. They managed trees with a different with that perspective. But anyway, so I sent out pretty comprehensive notes, and so if Ken or Jerry or somebody could get those, I gave it to the executive committee. I didn't have the reason on this. But thank you.
Thank you, David. Tamara, anything from your end on so far that you want to add?
No, I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, then down to C, Biomass Working Group. Chris, any updates?
I don't have anything. Do you have anything, Ken, that you've heard from Greg? I did text him earlier, but I hadn't gotten a text back from him. So
No, I had a chat with him this last week, and they're just continuing to be at the same initiative that you briefed on before, working with SMUD to hope potentially locate something in El Dorado County in terms of a some green energy sites, and of course, they've got proposals on the table with SPI to potentially use their facility. So a lot of things just in discussion, but I don't think there's any new breakthroughs as of this month.
And so far, we're looking at expanding the boundaries, was gonna include the Students River drainage also. So I make that the important, that's where Cal goes. And not go as far west as less we would like, and get more hopefully related to. I mean, at least maybe more. So anyway, all of you welcome to attend South of the American River Pollution Strategy Group meetings, is where grants are being level of planning is being done for resilient fire.
Excellent. Perfect. Thank you, David. So lastly, item 13, public comment. This is an opportunity for anything else that hasn't already been covered through the associate councils for any other comments for the good of the order. All right. Well, okay. So no, I'm not seeing any other public comment. So Hugh, we're down to 14 and Hugh has a good of the order.
Yeah, just a quick thing. There's another meeting here today at 1 o'clock, so we do not have to pick up the table. I would ask if you clean them off and just put the chairs back and we'll take care of that. Thank you.
That's the best news with all this. Okay, with that, the meeting is adjourned. Our next meeting is right here on Wednesday, February 15th. Thank you all for bearing with the long meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.